بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. المقدمة ديت هتلاقوها على عدد لا نهائي من التقارير، لأن التقارير اللي بتتعلق بالقضية اللي اتفتحت من جديد هتلاقوا كتير جدا، فأنا هاخد وترجم واحط نفس المقدمة والنهاية. ليه؟ لأنه لو حطيتها لوحدها من غير مقدمة ونهاية ممكن تتحذف بحجة ان هي حقوق ملكية مش بتاعتي، بس انا عاوز اعملها كنوع من التعليم، فلابد اضيف لها شوية في الاول وشوية في الاخر. تقارير فيها كتير جدا من الكلام اللي انا قلته في محاكمة وائل حنة، والتقرير اول تقرير هيتحط عليه ده هتشوفوا. لو كنت شفتوا الفيديوهات بتاعتي وبتاعت وائل حنة والربط بين ده وبين ده وبين ده وبين ده، اللي هي الناس كانت بتقول عليه انت بترغي كتير ليه؟ لان انا سامع الحاجات في المحكمة. اتفضلوا شوفوا التقرير الاولاني والثاني والثالث والرابع، وبعد كده نبقى نختم برضو اختتام محدد كده، بحيث انه تظهر لليوتيوب ان هي نوع من التعليم، فبالتالي لا ينطبق عليها قانون حقوق الملكية. اتفضلوا معايا.
Multi-year clandestine investigation into a potential bribe accepted by Donald Trump was shut down by the DOJ, but where the blame lies might surprise you. The Washington Post has learned of a Justice Department investigation into whether Trump accepted a $10 million gift from Egyptian President Abdel el-Sisi. We have more. 5 days before Donald Trump became president in January 2017, a manager at a bank branch in Cairo received an unusual letter from an organization linked to the Egyptian intelligence service. It asked the bank to kindly withdraw nearly $10 million from the organization's account, all in cash. Federal investigators learned of the withdrawal, which has not been previously reported, early in 2019. The discovery intensified a secret criminal investigation that had been begun 2 years earlier with classified U.S. intelligence indicating that Egyptian President el-Sisi sought to give Trump $10 million to boost his 2016 presidential campaign, a Washington Post investigation has found. Federal investigators began looking into whether Trump was the recipient of the cash withdrawal and whether it played a role in Trump's funneling of $10 million of his own money into his campaign during the final days of the election. So, what was Trump's relationship with el-Sisi like while he was in office? Over the course of his presidency, Trump shifted U.S. policies in ways that benefited the Egyptian leader, a man he once called my favorite dictator. In 2018, Trump's State Department released $195 million in military aid that the U.S. had been withholding over human rights abuses, a move that had been opposed by his first Secretary of State, followed by the release of $1.2 billion more in such assistance. But in the fall of 2019, the investigation was shut down before a conclusion was reached, and that decision was made by Trump's Attorney General, Bill Barr. Barr directed Jesse Liu, a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney in D.C., to personally examine the classified intelligence to evaluate if further investigation was warranted. Barr later instructed FBI Director Chris Wray to impose adult supervision on FBI agents Barr described as hell-bent on pursuing Trump's records, according to people familiar with the exchange. It is unclear what, if any, actions Wray, who was also appointed by Trump, took in response. In June of 2020, the prosecutor Barr appointed to take over the office leading the case closed the probe, citing a lack of sufficient evidence to prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt. Come November 2020, Trump loses to Joe Biden. Biden takes over, appoints Merrick Garland Attorney General. So what does he do? Michael Sherwin, the then acting U.S. attorney who closed the case, explained. Biden administration appointees, including Attorney General Merrick Garland, who took over the department months later, could have relaunched the probe if they disagreed. The case was closed without prejudice, Sherwin said. Anyone could have reopened the case the second I left that office. The case was not reopened. A spokesperson for the Trump campaign had this to say. The investigation referenced found no wrongdoing and was closed. None of the allegations or insinuations being reported on have any basis in fact. the Washington Post is consistently played for suckers by deep state, Trump haters, and bad faith actors peddling hoaxes and shams.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team, and we love you for it.
Jake, what do you make of this? Do you think this case was closed appropriately? Do you think Merrick Garland should have at least reopened it to reach a definitive conclusion?
Yeah, so as usual, I'm furious at Merrick Garland, the weakest man on the planet. So I'll come back to him in a second. So first off, guys, is this something that should be investigated, period? Let's acknowledge some of the facts on both sides. So number one, did the Egyptians take out $10 million for some sort of secret operation? Definitely. We now have their bank account information because we had enough evidence to inquire into this, and it was part of the Mueller report, and the judges took it very seriously. They deliberated and decided, yes, you have enough evidence to demand of that Egyptian bank their records, or the banks that dealt with them. And there was huge fines that were involved, and finally the banks relented and gave the information. So, and the Egyptians definitely didn't want it known. And so now, on the other hand, the Egyptians bribe a lot of people. So just saw a spectacular case of Democratic Senator Bob Menendez, who was bribed by the Egyptians, and he was just convicted, and money and gold they gave him, right? And by the same agency, and of course, that's their intelligence agency. So now, how about Trump? Well, they investigated between March or November of 2016, because Robert Mueller actually, even though the Republicans and Trump cried so hard about him, he's also super weak in my opinion. And so he investigated for only that period of time. And in there was two transactions that could have been Donald Trump receiving $10 million, including one for $10 million. But they looked into it and those were clean. That was not from Egypt, and they traced the money, etc. So I believe them because they have every incentive to, they don't have any incentive to clear Donald Trump in that case. This is the Mueller doing the investigation, etc. So he's fine in 2016. Now, obviously, there's this huge thing of, at the very end of his campaign, his team's like, we need another 10 million to run these ads. And this is well documented, right? And Trump, because he's Trump, is like, no, I don't want to give my own money. What am I, a sucker and a loser? I want those idiot MAGA guys to give me the money, okay? Or some of these corrupt corporate guys we're doing deals with, right? I don't want to give it. And then at some point, magically, he decides, oh, you know what? I think I do have 10 million to give. And he does give it. Now, that's not enough evidence to say that it was Egyptians. Maybe he thought, well, all right, God damn it, I want to win and I'll give the $10 million, even though that's not typically what he does, okay? So then you have to investigate 2017 because there's a couple of transactions that happened in 2017 that you could see publicly that's got like these big blinking signs of, look here, right? Bill Barr comes in, sees all that. Now, this is later in 2019 when all of this is finally uncovered, right? And he goes, as Jordan explained to you, yeah, let's have some adult supervision here. What that means is shut it down. Don't these guys know that we don't want Donald Trump exposed, right? And it's so as you see all the terrible things that Bill Barr did to protect Donald Trump, you should keep in mind, even Bill Barr, who was willing to do everything dirty to help Trump, when Trump finally did the fake elector scheme, Bill Barr's like, well, I didn't know we were going to do a coup. I just wanted you to be a normal, terrible, corrupt politician. And I'm willing to cover up anything, but not a coup against America, right? So understand how low Bill Barr's bar is, okay? So, all right. Then Merrick Garland gets into office. Hey, dumbass, you know that giant investigation of where the prosecutors, even during the Trump administration, underneath the political appointments, career prosecutors going, we got evidence, we gotta go, we have them, god damn it. It wasn't the Russians, it was the Egyptians. And look, the Egyptians are bribing Menendez, etc. And Merrick Garland lets them go after Menendez. Good, great. I would never want him protecting Democrats. And Menendez is as big a crook as you'll ever find, right? And then when it comes to Trump, as usual, Merrick Garland's like, okay, not yet. Okay, and if you don't know and you're new to this, Merrick Garland is a classic establishment Democrat. Protect the elites. Because if we go after Trump, then they might come after us. and our genteel ass is the most important thing on the planet. So for whatever reason, that loser never reopened the case. So I want that case reopened because I care about America. And look, what did I tell you about Israel? You think Israel's the only country that's trying to control American politicians? Of course not. It's an open auction. Everybody's coming in to try to bribe, do campaign contributions, control our government in every way possible. So does Israel do it, in my opinion, through AIPAC? Of course! Do the Egyptians do it by just taking out $10 million, give it to Menendez, and maybe give it to Trump? Of course! So wouldn't it be amazing if we had politicians who actually cared about us, American citizens? Apparently it's too much to ask for in either party. All right, what do you think, Was?
There's just several things that I love about this story, particularly Trump's campaign operation or spokespeople saying that, Bill Barr and Trump's appointed DOJ saw nothing in it. And so obviously there's nothing. And the idea that Merrick Garland and them didn't do anything, I think it's classic Democrat stuff. Everything is too cute by half. And what I mean by that is they took a lot of pride, the Biden administration and his appointees, in the fact that Trump's cases were coming from, to them, independent courts, right? In New York, in Georgia, Arizona, all these other places. They could say, look, it's not us getting retribution against the Trump campaign or, Donald Trump's former presidency. These are independent cases from, maybe left-leaning prosecutors, but nonetheless, it's not coming out of the White House. So it can't be seen as Biden directly putting his thumb and his administration putting his thumb on the scale. And that's probably what I'm going to assume happened. They were like, look, there's all these other cases that we're going to get him on. We're going to nail him to the cross for all these other these violations, excuse me. And they probably just was like, look, we don't need to do this directly from our administration.
Yeah, and that's preposterously wrong, of course. And the reality is this is actually the worst of them. I mean, if you have a foreign government just giving you $10 million. And by the way, did they get something in return? Of course. So there's the very friendly relationship with Sisi, but look, he has a friendly relationship with a lot of people for weirdo reasons, like he fell in love with Kim Jong-un, a communist dictator, okay? But the money is where it counts. There's a lot of money blocked under the Obama administration. The minute Trump gets in office, all of a sudden all the money flows to Egypt. And so was there something in return? Definitely. But again, we don't know yet because both the Trump and the Biden prosecutors refused to go after him for different reasons.
Yeah. This piece overall was really great. It was really well reported. I would encourage people to read it because we couldn't summarize everything within it. And one of the points that stood out to me was a meeting that Trump had behind closed doors. I believe it was at a UN convening with el-Sisi shortly before all of this happened. And that led them to believe he was putting his own money in ahead of time, knowing it would be repaid later by el-Sisi. So there's much more to it, but on how they handled this and how specifically Merrick Garland handled this, Trump, of course, you see that in his statement, you see it in how they talk about the charges, like to Waz's point, he wants to be seen as a martyr, a victim of the deep state and all of these things that are going after his legitimate wrongdoing. It's an issue of him gaming the refs and Democrats falling for it. Merrick Garland, I think, to your point, Cenk, is purely an establishment guy, will protect the elites, but I think what they were worried about is being perceived in, I guess, an election year or in the run-up to Biden, or in the run-up to this election year, just not, by pursuing Trump, by feeding into those claims, by feeding into those concerns. That's something they wanted to avoid. But I'm also concerned with who leaked this, how this came out. We don't need to pursue that. But by leaking this, this story getting out and showing that Barr killed it does give them cover to reopen it potentially in a Harris administration, or maybe even similar to how the FBI handled, James Comey handled Hillary's emails right before Election Day. So we'll see. But I also don't want to give credit to the Democrats too much on a sophisticated electoral strategy.
Yeah, you know what? I'll go further. So I hate the timing of these trials and the leaks and all of that. Hey, if you got this sumbitch taking $10 million from a foreign government, don't wait till before the election to leak the stupid information, okay? It's outrageous. Do you care or don't you care? And the answer is, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, they don't actually care, right? I care. I don't want deeply corrupt Democratic Senator Bob Menendez and deeply corrupt Donald Trump on, even if it's not this, on all the hundreds of other cases that we've talked about, for serving a foreign government. It disgusts me. And so I'm sick of all of these corporations, foreign countries being able to just totally manhandle our government, take over our politicians, and neither side does a goddamn thing about it. And so, look, I'll keep it real with you guys. This is for political purposes. If Kamala Harris wins, she's not going to pursue this. She's going to drop it immediately. And I bet you she drops every case against Donald Trump. Because we actually care. If a crook takes $10 million from a foreign government, put his ass in jail. They're putting Menendez in jail, and I'm thrilled about it. And if Trump did this, he definitely should go to prison. I don't care about your stupid elite country clubs and what your rules of etiquette are. But both the Republicans and the Democrats will very likely just use it for politics and then let it go.
And, as you guys, I'm sure, know, where there's smoke, there's fire. And when it comes to corruption and bribery, you don't really need to dig that deep beneath the surface. I mean, for goodness sake, while the guy was in office, he was taking his meetings with foreign leaders and dignitaries at Mar-a-Lago, meaning these folks had to pay to stay at his hotel the entire time. Like, he's always scraping stuff off the top. Of course, everybody, this isn't a secret. They didn't put this through a bunch of dummy companies and, stuff that we don't know. Jared Kushner got so much money from the Saudi government after the Trump administration was through. Do we think they did this out of the goodness of their hearts, or that they thought that, I don't know, they just think Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, is just some genius business individual? No. They got their back scratched while Trump was in office. Like this, it's not, beyond the pale for his administration. Like this wouldn't be out of character for Donald Trump and his cronies.
Yeah, no, Waz is 100% right. And you're forcing me to say two more things about it, which is that, look, part of the reason why they don't investigate, because there's a lot of these people, including, yes, Hunter Biden, these guys have family members, et cetera, that go and take money from corporations, from other countries, et cetera, for consulting work. And they don't want any of that exposed. A lot of the think tanks in Washington, whether they're left-leaning or right-leaning, taking tons of money from Qatar and Saudi Arabia, et cetera. So they don't want you digging underneath the elites, rocks, because what you're gonna find is, yeah, they're getting influenced and getting rich by letting folks, other countries and other companies influence our politicians. That's why they don't take the action. Now, last thing on Trump that's important. Look, number one, those transactions that happened in 2017 from the outside look very suspicious. Given all that we know already, they should do an investigation, but they don't have them. We don't know what those transactions in 2017 are. So I want to be clear about that. And lastly, if you're wondering, yeah, but what did the Egyptians get out of it? So Sisi did a coup and toppled the democratically elected government of Egypt after the Egyptian revolution. And he did tons of human rights abuses. That's why we had their money held up. Trump came in, and as soon as he came in, he said, let's be clearer, after the $10 million was withdrawn from an Egyptian bank, okay, so we don't know that it went to Trump, but after that event happened, Trump said that Sisi was, quote, his favorite dictator, and released $195 million that was held up immediately to the Egyptians, and a short while afterwards released $1.2 billion in funding that they had held up. So if you're the Egyptians, 10 million for 1.4 billion, that's a pretty damn good deal. If that's what happened.
طبعا في النص حشرت لكم التقرير المترجم والتقارير اللي هتتم بعد كده عشان اقول لكم انا مستمر، لان تبين ان احنا بنفكر بشكل صح لان احنا مصريين، انما الامريكان هوب مش عارفين الدنيا ماشيه ازاي. من اول يوم حضرت موضوع وائل حنا وانا بقول فيه في حاجه كبيره، في حاجه كبيره، في حاجه كبيره، في حاجه كبيره، وكنت دايما بتكلم في المواضيع دي، وجبت سيره الشركتين والبنك انا طلعت واتكلمت مع معتز مطر مرتين وانا اجيب سيره البنك الاهلي وبنك مصر وبنك تنميه الصادرات والحاجات دي كلها. استمتعوا بكل اللي انا هحطه مع المقدمه والنهايه ديت في التقارير القادمه ان شاء الله. شكرا، السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.